I'm going to read a few paragraphs from the middle of my chapter, and it starts from the point where we had to enter my mother into long-term care. And the gift for me of my mother's journey with dementia is that it brought alive for me my own soul journey in that process. It's probably the first time I've read these passages in front of a group of people. My mother never wanted to go there. No one ever does. There is only one way out. It was one of the most heartbreaking decisions I've ever had to participate in, and easily the most difficult decision we've ever made as a family. We all tried to hold back the tears as we prepared to leave her for the first time. My mother followed us to the door, ready to go home with us. I'll never forget her staring at us, confused as to why she was being left behind. Every time I entered the residential part of the home, my senses were assaulted. I came upon people, old people, and in some cases really old people, sitting in wheelchairs or chairs, just sitting there for the most part, most of them nodding off. Those were the ones who were well enough to be sitting up. In most of the rooms, someone was lying on a bed, oblivious to the rest of the world. And as good as this facility is, and it was a good one, it smelled of people waiting to die. I would make my way through multiple locked doors to get to the dementia unit. As I walked through, I often wondered what the meaning of life is when you are so old and incapacitated, just waiting to die, or living in your own little demented world. It was a human tragedy, and it made no sense. The human story is tragic. I bemoaned the decisions that needed to be made on behalf of my mother in relation to her care. I never wanted my children to have to make those decisions on my behalf. I told my boys that if we all began to notice signs of dementia or Alzheimer's in me, when I'm older, I would try to take matters into my own hands before it was too late. I am not afraid of death. I am afraid of becoming the living dead, haunting the corridors of death and dying as a shell of who I was. My mother's journey with dementia invited me fully into the exploration of the perspectives of our lives, one of human tragedy or of soul journey. I always thought that I viewed her journey, and my journey, or anyone's journey, from the perspective of the soul. This was true to a certain degree. I wondered what it would take to understand my mother's situation differently. The perspective of soul journey began to capture my attention in a new way. Nothing else made sense. Why would an otherwise perfectly healthy individual lose their sense of their life and of who they are? It is senseless from the perspective of the physical form. It was precisely that senselessness that took me deeper and deeper into soul journey perspective. As my perspective and curiosity about my mother and her journey expanded, I began to wonder if I could reach her in another way. What if I could shift my consciousness to a different plane, to a meditative state that touches a more universal consciousness? What might happen then? As I sat with her in her room one visit, I decided to test it. I began to meditate while keeping my eyes on my mother as she stared out the window. I felt my consciousness shift, and in that moment, my mother turned to look directly at me with an expression of surprise on her face. There was no doubt in my mind or my soul that I had made contact with her. It was fleeting, but I had an awareness of this communication pathway. The human tragedy story is so apparent it can obliterate the soul journey perspective. It is often hard to see beyond the sights, sounds, and smells assaulting your senses, such as those that would stun me as I walked through the halls of the home. It was also blinding, making it almost impossible to see anything beyond the physical. It was nearly impossible to see the fullness and vibrancy that exists beyond the veil. Now I am aware of a bubble of light that surrounds that home. The beautiful souls who live therein might be making contributions to the world that most of us cannot see or understand, and that makes my own spirit more joyful. I now hold my mother's journey with an added degree of lightness and delight, which I have no doubt she feels. I know she is a great teacher for me, a teacher of journey, a teacher of love, and a teacher of dying and death.